Ladies and gentlemen, an egg, that's right, this is the egg. An egg has 6 grams of protein. A dal equivalent to this would mean around 100 grams of protein that's required, which would be around half a glass of this. But this is uncooked half a glass. Half a glass of this would be around uncooked dal, which would amount to around 100 grams, which would be equivalent to the protein of this one egg. But when you cook the dal, the quantity will always increase, at least thrice the quantity, little over half of this. So one egg, half a glass of this would be the uncooked dal, and little over half, between this would be cooked dal. So if you want your child to consume dal equivalent to this egg, the child needs to consume this much of dal. Which child would do that for every meal? Ladies and gentlemen, how many children really do eat 100 grams of cooked dal per meal? You and I know the answer. So if eggs are increasingly exiting our school menus, what are we substituting it with? Why is this important, ladies and gentlemen? Most kids have their breakfast or a late breakfast snack and lunch at school. Some even post-lunch have a snack at the schools. They have a very early breakfast at home and then a dinner. Our schools have to step up. Our governments have to step up in providing the nutritional needs of our children. If you are mandatorily taking away the egg from the meal, what are you substituting it with? Becomes hugely important, because yes, nutrition does come at a cost and our children should not be bearing it. Maharashtra is the latest, ladies and gentlemen, 8th state to be precise, to get eggs off its midday meals. And then why? The Maharashtra government has announced it will discontinue funding for eggs and sugar for midday meals. In November 2023, remember, the state government, in a bid to overcome protein deficiencies, what they said, among students, had introduced 1 egg per week for each student beneficiary of the midday meal scheme. 1 egg per week. Students who did not want eggs could opt for fruit instead. Each egg was allocated for an additional budget of 5 rupee per student. Now, despite this order, the government says egg pulao, sweet dishes such as rice kheer or nachni satwa, which many believe are high in iron, remain optional, can be given by the government or the schools. But here's the clause: schools must arrange funds through public contributions if they do want to offer eggs. Well, here is the food for thought. Maharashtra government spent 200 crore rupees on advertisements for Ladki Bahin scheme and is now spending a big zero on eggs for children. For the time it did implement, it spent 50 crore rupees per year on students. Look at the contrast, ladies and gentlemen. 200 crore rupees on advertisements for Ladki Bahin, 50 crore rupees per year for an egg for a student in midday meal. And they couldn't find that sustainable. Well, Chief Minister Fadnavis has said the decision to withdraw funding for eggs and sugar was made after careful consideration of community sentiments. He said we must balance nutritional needs with the voices of parents who have expressed their concerns. And this isn't about government midday meals alone. Increasingly, particularly even in the national capital, schools are enforcing vegetarian meals and even not allowing non-vegetarian tiffins, including eggs. I am not propagating non-vegetarianism, but what I am doing is asking a very simple question. If sections of the society are choosing to enforce vegetarianism, how are you ensuring the right nutrition for children in schools? Sure, there are substitutes, and I totally agree. But what are our children being offered in the name of substitutes? Are they being given the substitutes that they need because it's expensive? Also, this isn't a vegetarian versus a non-vegetarian debate. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a debate on proteins, nutrition, and nurturing our young minds. Where is the protein, ladies and gentlemen? 73% urban rich are protein deficient in India. 93% are unaware of daily protein needs. 60% of protein intake is from low-quality cereals. 71% aged between 30 to 55 have poor muscle health. This is according to an ORF study. Don't forget, India is increasingly suffering with stunted growth. 35.5% children under 5 are stunted as per the NFHS 5. 1 in 3 of the malnourished children globally are Indians, according to the World Bank data. Do we have completely misplaced priorities? This is an important topic, I believe, which will also decide the future of our course, of our country for that matter. I'm being joined at this time by Krishna Hegde, who's a spokesperson for Shiv Sena faction, Dr. Shikha Sharma, who's a senior nutritionist, Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, who's a chairperson for Nephron, and Tehseen Poonawala, who's a political analyst.
Thank you.
Professor Tanveer Ejaz, who's a columnist and an academician. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. It's a pleasure to have all of you. A very, very, very important debate, a very, very important discourse. And I only believe we will have all our stakeholders far more influenced, far more decisive, and far more clear with what trajectory India is on. Well, let me straight go to you, Mr. Krishna Hegde. How do you explain what's happening? Are you happy with it?
Yeah, firstly, let me tell you that the sugar which is out of the midday meal is because the pediatricians have consulted and told us that we should keep the sugar out of the children's meal. Now you are speaking about the egg now, 24 lakh.
Big thumbs up for that.
Students are getting
Big thumbs up for that. And that's why we are not even touching about sugar. I did not even demand about the sugar, though I have a question on that. If you're, I mean, that's perfectly fine. A big thumbs up on that. I mean, sugar is bad for children,
okay,
particularly if it's unrestricted, unregulated for sure. So go ahead. Let's get to our topic now.
So if 24 lakh students are having one egg per week, per meal, then the entire cost per month comes to around 10 crores and 120 crores, per annum. But we are not even talking about that. Since you mentioned Ladki Behan scheme, I would tell you that 2 crore 50 lakh of our sisters are getting benefits out of Ladki Behan scheme, which you said that the advertisement is so much. But now let me get to the egg factor. The egg factor is such that it can, a lot of, the students who are vegetarian there are taking an offense, their parents are taking an offense, and therefore we have to alternatively give a dish. And therefore soya bean is also a good example, a good alternate. Also, we have lentils or pulses which we can give the students. It's not that the government of Maharashtra has stopped any of this midday meal scheme. We are just looking at the consideration of what can be given alternatively. Secondly, we have not said that we are going to stop eggs forever. It's only in this GR
No. Very important. Mr. Krishna Hegde. You are saying you are contemplating what should be offered as a substitute. You remove the source of protein and you are saying you're still contemplating it. Tehseen Poonawala.
Thank you so much for having me here, Sneha. And for first, I seriously wish with folded hands, there's a Pradhan Mantri Protein Yojana. India is a malnourished country. Now, by malnourished, I mean, and there was some report some time ago by which both the government and opposition went hammer and tong saying India is a hungry country. India is not a hungry country. They're getting 1700 calories, but getting 1700 calories means nothing. It's empty calories, as you showed. We are a malnourished country. We have a protein deficient country. The result of which is...
And this is across the economic strata.
Particularly in the middle class. Which is why, Dr. Bagai, which is why, Sir Krishna Bhai, please, can we have a civilized discussion? It's a very important topic, sir, please. which is why India has a cardiac arrest pandemic. It has a diabetes pandemic. You see the slim fat people where your abdomen is extremely fat, but your body is very slim. This is because of so much of carbohydrates. You have a fatty liver problem. You have anemia problem. These are all problems plaguing the Indian middle class. So the Indian middle class is also protein deficient. They're eating pizza. They're not eating sufficient protein. That's the first thing. No amount of, say, dal or a soya bean can make up for protein of an egg, which is a super meal. And for right now, I'm vegan right now. So please don't get after me, the moral policing. So if you can't give protein, at least give protein powder, give something that can compensate it. But the problem in kids is even worse. As you showed, 35%, it is the government, union government's own data, 35% plus kids below the age of 5 are stunted. Not only is this terrible, what this means is their brains will develop lesser, not have muscle mass, which means they will be susceptible to, they will be vulnerable, and they will not, their immune system will not develop. Protein is the building blocks for immunity. No other food, for example, when Krishna Bhai spoke about dal, it does not have the 9 essential amino acids that egg has. So if you don't want to give it, please give some protein powder or give something, consult a nutritionist. But this idea that some parents are objecting, those who are vegetarian, I absolutely respect it. So you're fine, you don't eat it. But those whose kids want to have it, how can you restrict somebody else's kids from having it because you don't want to have it?
Krishna
That
Hegde?
is terrible to do.
Krishna Hegde, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think 1700 calories a day is malnourished. I think it's a appropriate meal, and I think
I
the
didn't say
government has
that.
been doing this for several years now. And then you should also appreciate the government efforts of giving around 24 lakh students a meals per day, and that too on a regular basis without a break, and that too with nourished meals for every student in a very packed and hygienic condition. So I think that should be appreciated. Over that, whether you can substitute egg with soya or lentils or pulses or any of the other food material, that is up to the government to decide. And it's not that we've stopped it now and we're going to stop it forever. So it's like that. And right now, some officers have removed a GR on this front. But of course, whether we can, alternate eggs with fruit or with lentils or with pulses,
No,
it's for
one
the
point, just
government to
one
Mr.
point,
decide.
Hegde,
one
Mr.
point.
And
Hegde,
however,
you said parents
it's
objected.
not only
You said
it's not
parents
only
objected. You said parents objected.
Yes.
You said parents objected.
May I just make
My
one point?
question is, if parents have objected, do you take away eggs from those who want to eat eggs?
No, Sneha, let me tell you one thing, that this policy is only applicable in schools where more than 40% of the parents or students are objected. If anything less, this scheme
But
continues.
that's not
So
even more
there
than
is no
50%. But they are
no,
not
no.
even,
So
sir,
there is
Krishna
so
Hegde,
there
sir.
is no issue about this
40%,
policy
well,
or
at
this
least
scheme.
40, no, Krishna Hegde, sir. Krishna Hegde, sir, I'm still trying to understand this. If you are saying at least 40% parents have objected, that's still not 50% plus. It's still 40% plus, and therefore you take away the choice of 60% families to give their children eggs.
So it's not only about eggs, it's about the entire meal. It's about rice, it's about dal, it's about lentils, pulses, it's about sweet dish, it's about other things in the midday meal, which the government is doing and is doing it very well for the last several years. And I think that should be appreciated. If 24 lakh students are going to get a meal, and that too a healthy meal, and that too in proper,
Okay, very
This is
quick.
not.
Tehseen Poonawala,
conditions
respond
where
and I'll go to the rest
it's
of the panelists.
hygienically made,
I have
then
a
I
lot of
think the
Krishna
government's
Bhai, may I?
efforts also
Krishna Bhai,
should
may I?
be. Yeah,
Krishna
please,
Bhai.
please.
Krishna Bhai, hygiene is not, we're not discussing hygiene here, but I think the more important point is, Krishna Bhai made a point that 1700 calories. No, if you give 1700 calories of carbohydrates, that's not good. You'll have vitamin deficiency, especially B12, Indians have that. You'll have vitamin D deficiency, etc., etc., etc. Even if 99% of the parents are objecting and 1% want to eat it, that's the basis of our democracy, right? The right to choice. The right to choice is a fundamental right. And the reason, please understand one thing, the reason our Indian kids are stunted, 1 out of 3 kids, this is 33% of the world population. Our kids, this is the future of the Indian economy. Look at the impact this will have on the Indian economy if you don't have healthy youngsters in the future. This demographic advantage will turn into a demographic nightmare. Please have a protein yojana, have a Pradhan Mantri protein yojana. And I would say whether it's eggs, whether it's protein powder, whatever nutritionists consult, please do that. But please don't substitute protein for some other things and say that just having dal is sufficient protein. It isn't, it isn't, it isn't. You're playing with the health of people.
Okay, let me get in Dr. Shikha Sharma at this point. Dr. Shikha Sharma and Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, the focus is on both of you for now for the next few minutes. Here's my question to both of you. This is an egg with 6 grams of protein. This is possibly when 100 grams of dal will be cooked. The quantity will be almost somewhere around this, or possibly a little lower than the full mark. Now, if this is the comparison, Shikha, and if this is what we are saying that children will have to consume in a meal to get the 6 grams of protein, I totally understand that protein is substitutable. Egg is not everything. There are options, there are substitutes. But can schools afford that substitutes? Are schools doing that? And this is not about midday meals alone. Schools across the country, top bracket schools, have gone all vegetarian. They have children coming to their school. They have to bring their lunch tiffins. They have to have the meals. They have to either get vegetarian tiffins. Some schools say you have to have all the food on campus, from cookies to milk to bread stations to a buffet of lunch would usually have some paneer, some dal, rice, chapati, all of that stuff. How much of that really caters to a child's protein needs in India? Dr. Shikha.
Very important to understand that kala chana is very rich in protein. If you look at mungfali, it is very rich in protein. If you look at til, it is rich in protein. If you look at rajma, it is not as high as mungfali and like peanuts and kala chana, but it's still good in protein. Now, what I'm trying to say is, first we have to understand that egg is not the be-all and end-all of protein. And to make it into this superfood
Sure.
with be all and end all is not correct. Second thing which I'd like to say, that when we say that children or anybody becomes malnourished because they don't eat eggs, that's not true. If you really see in many of the akhadas, those are pure vegetarian people.
No, Dr. Shikha, that's not what we are saying. No, that's definitely not what I'm saying. I am not saying that not eating egg makes you malnourished. I am not saying egg is the only source of protein. I am not saying any of that. All I'm saying is, for example, you spoke about peanuts. Now, there'll be poha which will be served to children for the breakfast in the schools. There will be peanuts which will be sprinkled. If you practically speak of a bowl of poha which will go into kids, there may be 4 or 5 peanuts that may really go in. Is that good enough substitute?
Look at kala chana. Kala chana is very, very good source of protein. And it is one of the things which has been used in India for a very long time. In fact, kala chana soup is given when a person is not feeling well and cannot have the kala chana. The soup is also given. Second thing, which is also equally important, is eggs have to be stored under 15 degrees. Can these places afford refrigerators for storing eggs? Eggs also become contaminated with salmonella in certain seasons. Do they have those check mechanisms to ensure salmonella poisoning does not happen in children? Third thing, which is very important, is that when we are handling eggs, there is a certain way, a hygienic way of handling eggs, because any of these proteins which are from animal are very highly infectious if not handled well, which is not the same with other kind of proteins I mentioned. So what I'm trying to basically say
Dr.
is...
Shikha,
yes,
I totally agree with you. No, I totally agree with you. Your points are absolutely correct. But because they cannot be handled properly, or the school doesn't have the infrastructure to handle that properly, the onus cannot be on the children. My question, I'm again bringing it back to you. Yes, there are substitutes, but are schools giving enough substitutes? From government schools to the rich private schools, are they giving enough substitutes to the children, Dr. Shikha?
So I would say that, in my opinion, we should be looking at whatever the children are being served, is it nutritionally balanced rather than did we give egg or did we give dal? I think the question should be that whoever is deciding the plate of the child, are they giving a nutritionally balanced meal? because that is important, whether it is coming through kala chana or egg or this or that, and what is the logistics of handling that. Because what is very important is that when we try to say that only this has to be given and not that has to be given, it becomes more like a 0-1 or either or kind of a situation. So there are alternatives. They are very, very healthy. They are local alternatives. In fact, Maharashtra grows so much of mungfali. Maharashtra grows so many other grains which are very rich and very healthy. So we have to look at more innovative options. And there are enough and more people there who can come up with innovative options rather than sticking to one kind of food product.
I agree with that point. There are alternatives, there are innovative alternatives. Unfortunately, the reality is our schools are not looking at that. And our attempt today is to draw the attention to that, because Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, I want you to come in. How do you look at this? I mean, how do you interpret this? This is not about just a particular strata that is part of the have-nots. This is India's story. This is an entire country's story across the economic strata. 35.5 children under the age of 5 are stunted. This is NFHS 5 survey. 1 in 3 of the malnourished children globally are Indians. This is from the World Bank data. Now, how do you do this? Some may say that India is increasingly a vegetarian country, but look at the Pew research recently. It said 81% of Indians they interviewed followed some form of meat-linked restrictions. That is, they did not have meat either on a particular day or they did not have a form of meat, but they consumed meat. Only 39% described themselves as vegetarians. Dr. Bagai, put this in context for us, for our children, for the schools where our children go and spend more than half, in fact, majority of the day consuming most of the food in the schools that they do.
Good evening. My compliments to Tehseen first for his excellent knowledge of pediatric nutrition. I'm really happy. But on coming back to the topic, I think the question is of a balanced diet, and the balanced diet has to be sustained. Any politician who's mentioning that 24 lakh kids have to be fed X, Y, and Z as a favor, I think they should pack their bags very clearly. This is a moral obligation which we need to give to our country's children. I'm giving you hardcore statistics which will tell us why it is important. 80% of the child's growth potential is completed before the 2nd birthday. If a child is not keeping a good diet under the age of 2, that child will have a poor childhood, poor adolescence as far as nutrition and growth is concerned, not only physical growth, but mental and cognitive growth. When you're saying in the last 76 years that we have 1/3 of our population which is malnourished, 67% of our children under the age group of 5 are anemic, 50% of children under the age of 3 are malnourished, that means we've not done our homework right. We need to focus on nutrition really, really aggressively. And let me give you a fact comparison. Children's diet, yes, it has to be balanced, but their stomach size and intestine size and their attention span to sit on a dining table or a stool to sit is limited. Any protein supplement which we give in a diet has to have what we call as protein to volume match. So egg, for example, without going into a religious debate of veg versus non-veg, has per gram comparison 40% higher protein than lentil or paneer, 27% higher carbohydrates, and 62% higher fats. Egg does not occupy that much space in your stomach. The child is still hungry to eat other foods. You give a child equivalent amount, egg to lentil, about 3 bowls of dal, that child will not eat anything for the next 8-10 hours because the child's stomach is going to be bloated.
I'm not sure whether the child will eat the 3 bowls of dal first, doctor. Quite frankly, because mine doesn't.
He won't, yeah. Now there is also a concept of essential amino acids. So protein compositions which are there in egg give you a complete mix of essential amino acids. They also give you micronutrients like iron, calcium. Say calcium, for example, is 100 times more as compared to lentil in egg. So we have to look at it in a holistic manner. Let's not ban egg. It's not as precious as diamonds. If we look after our children, especially under the age group of 5, risk of infection, under 5 mortality, overall cognitive growth, IQ and intelligence of children, school attendance will all increase. We will have a more powerful country in the next 5 years. Look after children now.
Very, very strong.
Just
Krishna,
spoke about
I
me.
know Mr. Ejaz is also waiting. Krishna Hegde, you have a right to respond, please.
Yeah, firstly, let me tell you that the B12 and D3 deficiency is there in almost every Indian, whether you have eggs or no. Secondly, the esteemed doctor who spoke before me said that any politician who says that 24 lakh meals and the amount of money spent should pack his bags. Now, it is not about the money spent here. You should understand this is a non-veg versus a vegetarian debate, which the parents have in their school, and it is their
No, no,
No, it is
no,
not.
no,
No, I'm
no,
sorry.
no, no,
to
no,
That is
have
no,
not
no.
what
I
I said.
disagree
Debate or
with this,
not.
Mr.
No.
Hegde. This is
A
not
second-
Mr.
non-veg
Politician, that's
versus
not what I
vegetarian
said.
debate. This is
That's not what I
today's
said.
debate, today's discussion is a focus on protein and nutrition for our children. I
No,
am
obviously,
not making this a non-veg versus veg debate because
No, no.
I am a non-vegetarian, but I
No, no.
love vegetarian food. Give me vegetarian food. There are days that I really go on vegetarian, but I spend a lot to get that nutrition.
No, no, Sneha,
Will the
eggs is
government
one of my
and the
favorite.
school spend for the children?
No, no, let me tell you one thing that Dr. Shika very properly explained this, that this is not a, either egg or no egg debate. It is about what can be an alternative, and the government is giving the alternative. More than that, the government is doing whatever it can do for the 24 lakh odd students and doing it every week religiously, year after year, month after month. So I don't think that's a debate. The debate is if
Sneha, I must
something
come
is
in one
not
minute.
available at this point, then what can be given as an alternative? And we, as conscientious citizens of this country or the state, do not want any student to be malnourished or suffer in any way. And we want every student to have the best of health.
No government
And that
wants,
is a
no
priority
Indian
for all of
wants, but
us.
every Indian is suffering. Every child is suffering.
Just 60 seconds, Sneha.
That's what the research shows. Majority. Yes, please, Dr. Bagai.
Sneha, can I come in? Yeah, very quickly. Like I said in the beginning, Mr. Hegde, it is not a veg versus non-veg debate. And I said that if any politician is mentioning this more as a favor, he should pack his bags. If you're doing it as
No,
a moral
no one is
duty,
mentioning
please
it as
stay
a
in power.
favor.
But the fact is, we need
No
deliverance
one
of
is
results.
mentioning it as a
Just
a
trying,
favor.
let me complete, please. Just trying
Yeah,
is not
please,
good enough. Just trying is not good enough. When we are looking at a child who's malnourished, it's much more cost effective to feed a child properly than to treat the child with chronic infections later on in childhood. It's just simple mathematics. It's simple common sense. Children need adequate protein, adequate carbohydrates, and micronutrients supplementation. If we were doing it, these figures would not stare at our face.
Dr. Saab, with immense respect to you,
Professor
let me
Ejaz,
also
if I
tell
can
you
get you.
that no politician wants any child to be malnourished or suffer. So therefore, I am just telling you that whatever the state government is doing
Sir,
for the good of the
Sir,
students.
intent
However,
is
we have to
different.
take
No, no, no,
all
no, no, no,
matters
no, no,
into
no, 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 Sir,
consideration.
that doesn't, I mean, this. Krishna Hegde ji, that's a very, very long drawn argument. No government will ever want to harm the child, any child for that matter. But is the government doing what the government is supposed to do is what we are discussing. Dr. Shikha, I have a question for you as well. But Professor Ejaz, let me come to you first before I go to Dr. Shikha, because the question to that is going to be very linked to what you're going to also say. What's happening with educational institutions across the national capital as well? Increasingly, many of them, including the extremely high-profile schools that even for the starting of the education of a child, take anywhere up between 3 to 5 lakhs per month as their fee. What are we really looking at? Why are they increasingly making it mandatory for them to consume the food in the schools. The food needs to be vegetarian, pure vegetarian, and if they are bringing tiffins, they should not be getting non-veg, including schools. This is increasingly a phenomenon in the national capital as well. Why?
It's not only in the national capital, right? But of course, as you've said, it's there in the national capital. But let me tell you, these students, across, they are considered to be as guinea pigs for the experiments of the political parties and the government that they think that they would carry on. Now, midday meal scheme, try to understand this, that midday meal scheme is a scheme which is largely for government schools, primary, upper primary levels, and most of the students who come to these schools are coming from the Dalit families, are coming from ST families, are the marginalized sections of the society mostly, right? And look at their food habit. Look at their food habit at home. They eat onion, they eat garlic, they eat non-vegetarian food, most of them, right? But we are not addressing the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is a diktat which would lead to one nation, one food. You remember in Karnataka, there was this slogan that an egg a day ensures full stomach. I can't speak in Kannada, but that was the slogan. Why? Because of the fact that the NGOs who prepare the food, and that brings the moot question, is that who prepares the menu? Why it can't be decentralized? What is the memorandum of understanding between an NGO and the Zilla Parishad level? Right? Why it can't be decentralized? And the other question, which I think is very, very important out here, is that, are the parents there? He's saying, one of your panelists said that 40% of the people, they have petitioned. I am sure that he is lying because of the fact that, not even 40% in the schools, so it's a cultural war. Let me make it very clear. In the capital also, in universities also, it's a cultural war between non-vegetarian and vegetarianism. Now, vegetarianism is pushed through to the students as guinea pigs. They're experimenting. They are experimenting a larger agenda. Let me tell you, and if schools, they do not follow this, they are being penalized one way or the other. There's so many ways in which, either you stop the funds or you do a lot of other ways in which, these schools, private schools also, they're scared. You will be shocked to know that in most of the big schools, and in fact in universities, private universities, when the university is giving food, the university is giving vegetarian food, but they have kiosks of non-vegetarian outside which you can buy. Now this is something very bizarre. What is the problem in having egg? I don't understand. What is the problem in having a chicken? In fact, why egg? They should be given chicken for that matter, because there's so many of the non-vegetarian students who want it, and they go outside, instead of going outside, having chicken outside, why can't they have chicken inside, a more hygienic one? So I think it's a bizarre logic. And let me tell you, I think we need to have more ethnographic studies on the schools, and then let ethnographic studies tell us that who is being, how many petitions are there? Who are petitioning? I think it's a big lie. Nobody petitions. The government, it's their own, I call it as a food fascism. One food, one culture. So it's a cultural war. Let me tell you, it's nothing to do with hygiene. It's nothing to do with, it's a cultural war which is there serving a particular agenda. So I think one will have to understand it's an anti-Dalit, anti-Adivasi, anti-marginalized communities, because they don't want these kids to capacitate themselves. So this is the whole agenda. Let me tell you very frankly, why only BJP run states do that? Can I ask this question to Shiv Sena candidate, spokesperson? Why only BJP state does that?
Mr. Krishna Hegde.
Why not other states?
Krishna Hegde, come in. You have a question to answer, and I know you have your point to answer as well. But before I get you in, let me just run this graphic, run this info for our viewers. Karnataka has announced 1 egg 6 days of the week. Kerala hiked funds to provide eggs once a week because they were falling short of that. Andhra Pradesh, 1 egg provided 5 days of the week. Tamil Nadu, 1 egg provided 6 days of the week. Telangana, 1 egg provided 3 days of the week. Bihar, Uttarakhand, 1 egg provided per week. 7 other states and UTs, 1 egg provided 1 to 3 days per week. States are doing this. Krishna Hegde, please come in. Some questions that have been asked of you, and one question that I would add to it. Why was it so difficult?
No, I don't understand what the panelist said before me. He said politicians are treating these, kids as guinea pigs. And, first of all, the Dr. Shika very clearly said that if eggs or I would say even onions, if they are kept in open for a long period, some period it gets contaminated. Why don't you look at that? Secondly, no one said, Dr. Bagji or someone said that 40% of the people have petitioned. We are not talking about 40% of the people who have petitioned. We are only saying that if the school says 40% or more parents have asked for something else, that we'll give it to them. If not, we will not give, we'll give them eggs. I don't think that this is a matter of concern. It is up to the parents to decide. It is up to the students to decide. Anyway, the government is spending money. Anyway, we're giving the students midday meals, and we are not doing them a favor. The government is doing what the government wants to do, and the government is doing it for several years. It's not these panelists who say, the government is doing a student a favor or something of that sort,
No, but
or
if
the
you
parent a favor.
can I
It's not
respond?
about anything else. We want a healthy society. We want our young kids to grow up strong and healthy. We want them to be brilliant and take the country forward, because this is India and that's what we care for. We care for India. But I
But
don't think
India
these
is
guys are
No,
stunting.
thinking in the right sense.
India
if
is
you give
stunting
If
according
contract,
there
to
are
research.
alternates to,
if you give a contract to ISKCON, for instance, if you give a contract to ISKCON, ISKCON says that we will not be giving onion, we will not be giving garlic, we will not be giving, So the question is that why do you give contracts to ISKCON? I mean, these are the questions. You
No,
do
that's
it on
not
a
the point,
PPP
Mr.
mode.
Ejaz. They
You
are
do
free
it
to
in a
give contracts to ISKCON as
now you
well.
have
That's
now you
fine.
have a problem
We are
with
not
ISKCON
saying
food.
don't give.
Do you
No,
have
no,
a problem with
the
ISKCON
kind
Let
of
food
me
now?
just
milk which is
regulate this.
being
No,
said,
hold it. Both of you. I'm very particular that this needs to not get derailed. So I don't have a problem
Now
with
he's
ISKCON
getting
getting
religious
contracts.
because
But what
he's
the
getting
problem,
religious now.
Mr. Hegde, that's why I've intervened. I'm getting it back to what the debate is. The debate is, are we giving our children enough protein? Studies are saying no. Dr. Shikhar, Tehseen, give me 2 minutes. I know
Sure,
you've been
please,
wanting
please.
to come,
No,
come
please,
in.
Dr. Shikhar first.
Dr. Shikhar, how do you suggest India maneuvers a very tender hook and a very narrow path between what some say fascism, food fascism, and some say is cultural pluralism? Because for decades, India has done that. For centuries, India has done that. As a non-vegetarian, when I used to go to school, I used to be extremely sensitive about my vegetarian friends whom I would share my tiffin and my desk with. So would my vegetarian friends. We were very mindful of each other. There were no written codes and written rules, nothing, but we were extremely mindful. There were days when I would say, oh, you can't have this. And there were days they would say, I got something, you may have never had it. It worked.
Yes. So I think the first thing which I would like to reiterate is that we should look at a balanced, healthy nutrition plan for the midday meals scheme. That is, of course, non-negotiable. And that has to come from a variety of grains which are locally available, which are culturally acceptable to that region. The second thing which is very important is, like I said, that top-down approach, that somebody at the top is thinking that, oh, egg is good and this is good and that is good, who may not even understand that what are the other grains or other things which are good locally, is creating this whole midday meal menu. I think that is not only wrong, but India is a large country with many cultures, many food habits. So the cultural patterns should be followed in terms of eating, not the religious, not the other things. But what I'm trying to say is, if some grain is growing there, which is healthy, which has a good nutritional value, please get that. Don't do a top-down approach with protein bars, with this, with that, with a lot of other stuff. So that is my second submission. The third submission is, and which is let's look at logistics, whether it is egg or whether it's no egg, whether it's A, B, C. Look at the logistics of how it is being stored and given. Because see, many times what we see is, even if we look at schools which can afford expensive food, normally a lot of egg was not given because it decays very fast. It smells very fast. And that is why such things were not usually given in
But
tiffin.
so
Because
does paneer, Dr. Shikha. So does paneer, Dr. Shikha. Won't you agree? In fact,
no, no,
Even
I
even
paneer
dal
also gets
also.
spoiled very fast if it's not
See, dal also.
stored in a
Even dal
proper way.
also.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
you know,
I'm not saying that give paneer. I'm saying
I
give.
don't get that.
Now, please make a point.
I'm not saying give paneer in tiffin or give ABC. I'm saying give options which are practical and which are nourishing. See, I'm not talking.
Yes,
See,
which are always there. They are present in the country. That's true.
yes.
Boiled
So,
egg is very practical.
so
The
give
question is
to.
about boiled
Okay.
egg,
Yeah, can I?
right?
So what I'm trying to say is that when we look
Question is
at,
about the protein.
Can I,
yes,
Dr.
yes,
Shikha, may I make my 2 points?
I
yeah,
beg- I
I
become
completely concede that there are various forms of protein, and both Dr. Bagai and I have been saying it must be a full-fledged menu. What we are speaking about, the right to somebody else choosing their protein as egg. Why is that being trampled upon? If you think that you can get, for example, a child between the age of 4 to 8 requires approximately about 19 grams of protein. So 3 of those eggs will give it. Now, school will give 1, at home will get 1, etc. So it's 3 eggs. Versus to get the same protein in peanuts, as the nutritionist was saying, requires 100 grams of peanut or 80 grams of peanut. A bowl bhar ke peanut. Do you know any kid will eat a bowl bhar ke peanut versus 3 eggs throughout the day? What is there? Plus easier to digest. Now, what is the second thing? Eggs get spoiled. अब थोड़ी देर आप दाल बाहर रखिए ना महाराष्ट्र में कि दाल आउटसाइड दाल खराब नहीं होगा. So this argument is, again, as the academician said, very elitist. Look, what I'm just saying is, I am for. You want to eat chickpeas, you want to eat peanuts, you want to eat whatever you want to eat, that's your right, and please do it. I want to feed my child eggs. You don't trample on my right to eat eggs. Please eat what you want. I'm not stopping you. But why are you stopping me from eating? Why should I accommodate you? Why can't you accommodate me? We both can accommodate. I am not forcing you to eat the egg. You don't force me to eat the chickpea. Let it be equal. You eat what you have to eat. And there are alternatives, protein powders, whatever you have. Please look into it. Let the government do research. Pradhan Mantri Protein Yojana will be a hit. It will be the greatest service to our nation. We are a protein deficient
I
country.
hope Prime Minister Modi hears that, because I think that's something which is very much doable in our country. Meanwhile, Krishna Hegde, it's to you.
Yeah, I would say that whether it's politicians or otherwise, or doctors or anybody, or social workers or teachers, I think everyone wants the welfare of the students. They want healthy students. They want brilliant students. We want a brilliant India in the future, and therefore there is nothing like I remove an egg from your plate and then I alternate with someone else, something else. I think that's not the case. It's just about uh, what is happening today and what we
I
need to
didn't
do
get
for the
that, Mr.
students.
Hegde, though.
And that is more important, whether it's education, whether it's food, whether it's nourishment, whether it's health, whether it's the way they reach their school. The government has to work for the students, and that's all what's important.
Okay,
And
I
I
think we're
don't think it's
totally
any.
at the end of this show. Dr. Bagai has his hand on the head, so I guess he can speak.
Okay, I was just
Dr.
coming out
Bagai?
from the wheels within wheels within wheels within wheels. So, leaving the wheels behind, we need to focus on a magnitude of protein varieties. We need to balance protein with carbohydrates. It is measured weight-wise and age-wise. Every age has a different requirement. Every weight of a child has different requirements. The end point is we need to decrease the level of malnourishment. Now, like I said earlier, trying is not good enough. If people are trying and continuously being unsuccessful, then it is not good enough for us. We have entrusted you with a post. You need to fulfill and give us results. No results means no performance. As simple as that. Over to you.
Mr. Ejaz, you have something to say. 30 seconds, please.
Sorry?
You had something to say. You had your hands up, so 30 seconds to you.
To me, yes. I mean, what I want to say is that I differ from the panelists' expression that is the question of balanced diet, is the question of which alternative. It is not that. It's simply a question between non-vegetarian and vegetarianism. And vegetarianism needs to be experimented to the kids at the school level. And that needs to be done
All
at
right.
the early stage. And therefore, the menu needs to be decided from that perspective. So menu has an agenda. That's what it has a political agenda. It has a cultural agenda.
I'm totally out of time,
It has
ladies
the
and
problem with
gentlemen.
ISKCON,
This
basically.
is a hugely important debate. This is not a debate on religion. This is not what I have wanted it. The debate is very clear. This is about the children of India. It's about the right to eat, the right to access to protein, the right to access to nutrition and nourishment for young children in India. Krishna Hegde, thank you very much. Tehseen Poonawala, thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Shikha, Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, thank you very much. And Professor Tanveer Ejaz, thank you very much for your time. Time for a very short break. On the other side, news and updates.